Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll note all board members are present with the exception of Helen Hudson and Calvin Corridors, both of whom are excused. So we will start with the acceptance of the November 29, 2018 minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next up, we have minutes from our special meeting on December 13, 2018.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, on to our report from the secretary. Joe.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
As I handed out to several board members, there's additional correspondence from Rex Giardine. I believe some members received it electronically as well.
Mm-hmm.
In your packet, there's a revised schedule for the 2019 meeting dates. We adjusted the April date to reflect the spring break, so we pushed that ahead to 1 week to the last week of April.
Okay.
And we made an adjustment to the March date, pushing it ahead to the last week of March to help with the flow of payments. So if the board agrees, we'll go ahead and publish that in January.
Look okay to everybody? All right, looks good.
And then finally, on the topic of meetings, and I'll defer to the program manager for more detail, but my understanding is we may need a special meeting early in January. The SED is continuing to review the Fowler situation, and upon their approval, we could move forward with that project, which a special meeting would help time-wise.
Sure. Okay, just keep us posted.
Yes, thank you, and that completes my report.
Great, thanks, Joe. Okay, next up we have our program manager report. Chris?
Morning. How's
Morning.
everybody?
Great.
Good. It's very festive in here. It's nice.
We try.
So wanted to just brief you on a couple things this morning. Everybody has a report in front of them. We're taking bids today. I'm in the procurement section, the upper left. Taking bids today for Corcoran at 2 o'clock. Fingers crossed, and we know we have a couple bidders. So I'm sorry, 2:30. Thank you, Mary. So get my date, my times mixed up here. So 2:30 today, we take those bids, and hopefully we'll see where that goes in terms of responses. The market is still a very busy market and very volatile market in terms of we've seen ups and downs on stuff that we've been monitoring that's bid, and some coming in high and some coming in low. So we'll see where it goes. Next up on that circuit is Nottingham. The anticipation is that we'll get that advertised here in early January, and then be receiving bids in the mid-February timeframe, with anticipation of getting it underway and awarded by the spring, by April, is the current plan at the moment. Beyond that, just under procurement, just as an FYI, we put an RFP out for printing services. We reevaluated. We had 2 printers on the previous for T1 for tranche 1. Put that out and made some decisions this morning on who we're gonna select for printing on the tranche 2 projects, just as an awareness. Same thing with the special inspections and air monitoring. We're in the process of putting an RFP out for that, just because we want to make sure we're current and we've evaluated the pricing and have a fair assessment of who we bring on for doing the testing. Under project financing, just we're headed down the road of, we have SIDA did the initial hearing, or the public hearing, yesterday, and then we will have the meeting in January. I think it's the 15th for the approval of the financing for the 2A borrowing, and then that'll put us on a trajectory to have closing on that and be able to have secured the financing around $73 million by mid-March for the next, and that will cover the Corcoran and Nottingham projects. Under design and approval status, just to give you an overview of where we are with SED, we have 3 projects that are in the same category there. Clary, Danforth, and Elms, those are pending approval. We're going through that kind of that circuit of the responding to their comments, issuing an addendum to address their comments, and then that's gone a couple rounds on a couple of these. So it's been a little bit slower than we had hoped. I think SED is still facing some challenges there in terms of timely reviews, in terms of just being able to get those through. They've got a lot of projects in the queue. So we're working through that. And then Henniger, we need to, that's in our court, well, in the architect's court actually currently, to develop an addendum for that so we can send that in. But moving along well there with that. The Fowler site design, as Joe mentioned, we will We are waiting to hear from State Ed on their approval of allowing us to expand that incidental allowance. We should hope to hear from them shortly here. We made another inquiry and waiting to hear where we are with that. Once we receive that, then we want to adopt a resolution first from the Syracuse City School Board, which we're tentatively lined up, I believe, for the 9th. Is that correct, Tom? The 9th is the tentative to meet with them, and then we'll come back, as Joe said, for a special meeting here. We want to make sure that we allocate that additional to the tune around $5 million towards Fowler and be able to have that in place before we put that in motion. So that'll be coming to you. Beyond that, on construction, in the lower left there, Blodgett, I was just going to highlight the ones that are kind of new here. Work continues on Fraser. We're just about through that. We were waiting to get a few more windows in, and then that'll be closed out. Well, completed. The work will be completed, and then we have to deal with some of the punch list items. Under Blodgett, starting some work over there. They've mobilized. They've got a plan there, and they're starting to load the building with some materials and working through the nuances of how we're going to work in there. Again, that's occupied, but there was a lot of room in there, so we're able to do a phased construction in there. Under Grant, things are moving forward over there. We're still working through, I think last time, Sean mentioned, we've got some conditions on the exterior wall over there that are of some concern that we're trying to work through an engineered solution there to figure out how we're going to address those. Don't have our arms around that completely yet, but working towards that. Bellevue work continues. It's going well over there. And Ed Smith work is continuing. We have had some concern. I think I noted it last time, and under our critical issues or constraints section, we had a meeting with a principals meeting to discuss that with the firm that's responsible for that. We're following up with them again today. We met with them 2 weeks ago. We're following up with them today. So I will tell you that from a schedule and a performance standpoint is on the radar. It is something we're watching. They've committed to making it right. They've got the right things in motion, and they're committed to improving their performance, but nonetheless, it is something we're watching closely. Under constraints, just the procurement, which we touched on, just that the market is still, will be more telling today, hopefully good news, but will be more telling today when we get through that. Grant, I think we touched on the exterior wall condition and the follow-up meeting today with Ed Smith. Those were the big ones that we wanted to point out. The upper right there just is some snapshots of, I know they're small, but wanted to give you a few snapshots of the progress of where we're going. The Bellevue picture there pictured as walls where there were none. So that's nice to see that, and if you walk through it, you get a little bit more perspective. Ed Smith, the boilers are in place in the boiler room. That's what the picture is there. The windows at Fraser, you can see, again, picture's kind of small, but if you remember, that had the staining, the white staining that was running down all the face of the masonry over there. That's been all cleaned up and all new windows in there. And the ductwork, we opened up Grant. If you'd been there before with the wood ceiling, we opened that all up to an exposed structure, so it's pretty significant transformation. And then Huntington was just some work on the new pool deck that we're doing over there. So that's about it. Any questions?
Great. Questions for Chris?
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Have a great holiday.
Thank you too. Okay, next up we'll get a report on our financial statements.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hopefully you all have the financial statement in front of you. We just have a couple highlights. The only highlights really were we had disbursements, and we also had some income on investments. That's really all I'm going to cover for the October statement. The first 4 pages are basically a discussion, management discussion, and an overview of what's in the pages behind it. So I'm going to start on page 5 with the statement of net position.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't have a copy here. Is there any extras over there? Great, thank you. Okay, thanks.
Okay, on page 5.
We'll look at this.
Okay, you got it?
Yeah,
Good.
great. I don't like to share, so now we all get it. Thank you. Okay, so what page are we on now?
We are on page 5, the statement of net position. Okay, at the end of October, which is what this financial statement reflects, the fund had a total of $112.9 million of Phase 1 and Phase 2 cash together. Also included is the total capital assets of $162 million. And the capital assets basically reflect all closed Phase 1 projects as of 6/30/18. Compared to the September statements, cash has decreased by $6 million, and due to the payments for project costs, and increased by $145,000 for investment income in the form of interest. The total liabilities at the close of October were $227 million, and that includes bonds payable for both Phase 1 and Phase 2 projects, debt service payments due to the district, and bond anticipation notes payable for Phase 2 projects. So at the end of October, the unaudited total net position is $48 million. Now we can move on to page 6. Page 6 shows the statement of sources and expenditures. Now this is basically just for this current fiscal year, which started July 1 up until the end of October. So as you can see, Phase 2 year-to-date sources through October is $596,000, and that is from interest earned on investments. And the year-to-date expenditures through October total $15 million. There is nothing to report for Phase 1, obviously. The next page is our cash flow statement. This report represents the sources and disbursements on a cash basis that flow through all the JSCB accounts. The actual figures are provided for July through October, and the projected amounts are included up to June of 2019. The cash flow statement reflects that JSCB will end the fiscal year with $66 million, and that's primarily due to the in the form of bond proceeds. And the last page is the revenue and expense inception to date, and that is from the beginning, the very beginning, several years ago when we first started Phase 2, and as well as the totals for Phase 1. This shows the total incidental and construction costs paid by the JSCB up to present, which is the October 31st statements. The inception to date sources totals nearly $144 million for Phase 1 and $132 million for Phase 2, and the expenditures to date are $141 million for Phase 1 and $30 million for Phase 2. And that concludes the report. Does anybody have any questions?
Great.
You good?
Questions?
No?
Thank you. Okay. So we have 4 resolutions here. So Joe, why don't you walk us through them?
Yes, our usual payment resolutions for the month, beginning with resolution number 85, which would be the monthly payment to Landon and Ryan.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 86 would be the monthly payment to the Turner Construction Company.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 87 would be the payment to the various contractors working under the Tranche 1 financing.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And finally, resolution number 88 would be the payment to the various contractors working under the Tranche 2 financing.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
That completes our resolutions for today.
Okay. Any other business to come before the board? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Just like to
Happy
say
holidays.
Happy holidays.